The baby wouldn't stop screaming. Amina stumbled through the darkened corridor of Seoul's most exclusive private hospital, her vision blurred from exhaustion. 18 hours into a double shift. Her feet ached. Her mind felt like static. The power outage had thrown the entire VIP wing into chaos, emergency lights casting everything in harsh red shadows that made the white walls look like they were bleeding. The screaming grew louder, desperate, the kind of cry that went straight through your chest and squeezed your heart. She knew that sound. Her own son had cried like that when the fever wouldn't break last month. She shouldn't be here. This was the restricted wing, the floor where armed security usually stood at every corner, where nurses whispered about the dangerous men who visited in the middle of the night. But the power failure had scattered everyone. Nurses were dealing with emergencies on other floors. The backup generators hadn't kicked in yet, and nobody was coming for this baby. Amina pushed open the door. The nursery was empty except for one crib in the corner, and inside it, a tiny infant with his face red from crying, his small fists punching at the air like he was fighting invisible demons. She picked him up without thinking. Muscle memory, instinct, the same way she'd picked up her own son 1,000 times before. The baby's cries shifted, became more frantic, more searching. She recognized that hunger cry immediately. How long had he been alone? How long since anyone had fed him? Her body responded before her mind could catch up. She was so tired, so completely exhausted that the boundaries between right and wrong had dissolved into something simpler, something primal. A baby was hungry. She could help. She sat in the chair by the window, cradled him close, and let him feed. The baby's desperate crying stopped instantly. The silence that followed felt sacred. His tiny hand curled against her chest, and she felt his whole body relax, felt the tension drain out of him as he finally got what he needed. Amina's eyes drifted closed, just for a moment, just while he finished. She didn't see the security camera in the corner, its red light blinking steadily in the darkness. She didn't see the footage already streaming to a private server across the city. She didn't see the man watching that footage, his face completely expressionless, his hand frozen halfway to his mouth with a cigarette he'd forgotten to smoke. And she certainly didn't hear what the man standing behind him whispered. "Boss, that's your son." The man's eyes didn't blink, didn't move. For 10 full seconds, he watched the stranger cradle his child, watched his son's life being saved by someone who had no idea what she'd just done. Then he spoke, his voice so quiet it was almost a whisper. "Find her." By morning, the entire underworld would be searching for her. But Amina, exhausted and terrified of being discovered in the wrong place at the wrong time, had already run. 3 weeks earlier, Amina's life had been simple in the way that poverty makes things simple. Every decision came down to the same calculation. Could she afford it? Could she risk it? Could she survive without it? She lived in a basement apartment in Itaewon, the kind of place where water dripped from pipes you couldn't see, and the walls were so thin she could hear her neighbor's television through 3 layers of concrete. She shared the space with her son, David, who was 2 years old and had her eyes and his father's name, and nothing else from the man who'd left before the pregnancy test had even finished developing. Seoul had been supposed to be temporary, a place to make money, send it home, build something better. That was 4 years ago. Now she was trapped in the kind of existence that felt like running on a treadmill, exhausting yourself to stay in exactly the same place. She worked 2 jobs. During the day, she cleaned office buildings in Gangnam, scrubbing toilets for executives who never looked at her face. At night, she worked at the hospital, a private facility that catered to Seoul's elite, the kind of place where a single room cost more than she made in 6 months. Her position was deliberately vague. Night aide, they called it. It meant she did whatever nobody else wanted to do, mopping floors, changing trash bags, restocking supplies, sometimes helping patients who couldn't sleep, bringing them water or adjusting their pillows. The other workers were mostly immigrants like her, Filipina nurses, Vietnamese cleaners, Bangladeshi security guards. They existed in the margins of this gleaming world of wealth, invisible until someone needed something. Amina was good at being invisible. It was safer that way. She sent money home every month. Her mother was raising her 3 younger siblings back in Lagos. The money Amina sent paid for school fees, for food, for the medication her father needed for his diabetes. They were counting on her. She couldn't fail them, so she worked until her body screamed for rest. She smiled when she wanted to cry. She bowed when she wanted to scream. And she survived. David stayed with Mrs. Kim during her shifts, an elderly Korean woman who ran an informal daycare out of her apartment for immigrant workers who had no other options. Mrs. Kim was kind but practical. She charged exactly what she knew Amina could barely afford. Not a one less, not a one more. Every night when Amina picked David up, exhausted beyond words, he would wrap his small arms around her neck and whisper, "Mama," like it was a magic spell that could fix everything. It almost could. The hospital job was supposed to be routine, safe, but Amina had learned that nothing in Seoul was truly safe for someone like her. Immigration status always hanging by a thread. One complaint from the employer and she could be deported. One emergency that required official paperwork and her precarious life could collapse. So when the power went out that night, when she heard that baby screaming in the restricted wing, when every instinct told her to walk away and let someone else handle it, she'd made the choice anyway, because some things mattered more than safety. Some things you just couldn't ignore. Amina noticed them on the third day after the incident. The men weren't obvious about it. They didn't follow too closely, didn't make eye contact, but they were there, always there. The first time she thought it was paranoia. A tall man in a black coat standing outside the convenience store where she bought David's formula. Just standing there, smoking a cigarette, looking at his phone. The second time, it was two men in a sedan parked across from Mrs. Kim's building when she picked up David. They didn't move when she looked their way, didn't react, but she felt their eyes tracking her. The third time, she knew it wasn't paranoia. She'd left the hospital after her shift, walking the 40 minutes home because the bus fare added up over time. It was 4 a.m, the streets mostly empty except for delivery trucks and the occasional taxi. She'd taken her usual route through the quiet residential streets when she realized someone was walking behind her. Not just walking, matching her pace, staying exactly the same distance behind. Amina's heart began to hammer. She turned a corner. The footsteps followed. She walked faster. So did they. There was a 24-hour cafe 3 blocks ahead. Light, people, safety. She started to run. The footsteps behind her stopped. She burst into the cafe, gasping, and spun around to look through the window. The street was empty, completely empty, like whoever had been following her had simply vanished. She stayed in that cafe until the sun came up, drinking a single coffee she couldn't afford, watching the street and trying to convince herself she'd imagined it. But she hadn't imagined the men. They were still there the next day, and the day after that. Different men, different cars, but always watching. Amina tried to tell herself there was a logical explanation. Maybe someone had reported the feeding incident, and the hospital was investigating. Maybe she was in trouble with management. Maybe. But deep down, she knew this wasn't hospital administration. This was something else entirely. On the 7th day, she tried to quit. She walked into the supervisor's office at the hospital, hands trembling, and told him she was resigning effective immediately. Family emergency back home. She was very sorry. She would understand if they couldn't provide a reference. The supervisor, a tired-looking Korean man in his 50s, looked at her with something like pity. "You can't quit, Amina. I have to. I'm sorry, but I have to." He shook his head slowly. "I received a call yesterday from someone very important. They asked that you remain employed here. They were very clear that your position is secure, permanently secure." Her blood turned to ice. "Who called?" "I can't tell you that. I won't tell you that. But Amina, listen to me carefully." He leaned forward, lowering his voice. "Whatever is happening, whatever you've gotten involved in, do not run. Do not quit. Do not draw attention to yourself. Just keep your head down and do your job." "I don't understand." "You don't need to understand. You need to survive." That night, Amina came home to find her apartment door slightly ajar. She'd locked it. She always locked it. She was obsessive about it, checking 3 times before leaving, tugging on the handle to make sure. David was with Mrs. Kim. Thank God. Thank God David wasn't here. Amina stood in the hallway for a full minute, staring at that gap of darkness between the door and the frame, trying to decide what to do. Call the police? And tell them what? That she was an immigrant with questionable visa status who thought someone had broken into her basement apartment? She pushed the door open slowly. Nothing was broken. Nothing was stolen. Her television was still there, her laptop, the small amount of cash she kept hidden in a sock drawer. But someone had been inside. She could feel it. The air felt different, disturbed. There was an envelope on her kitchen table. Plain white envelope. No writing on the outside. Amina's hands shook as she opened it. Inside was money. More money than she'd ever seen in one place. Neat stacks of 50,000 won notes. She counted it twice, not believing what she was seeing. 10 million won. Almost 8,000 US dollars. And beneath the money, a note written in careful English. For helping my son, more will come. You are protected now. No signature. No explanation. Amina dropped the envelope like it was full of poison. She grabbed her phone, called Mrs. Kim, and told her she was coming to get David. Now. Right now. She threw their belongings into 2 bags, moved like her apartment was on fire. She couldn't stay here. Couldn't accept this. Whatever this was, whoever these people were, she wanted no part of it. She made it 3 blocks before the car pulled up beside her. Black sedan, tinted windows. It rolled to a stop right next to her, and the back door opened. A man stepped out. Not tall, but solid, muscular. Expensive suit. Face like carved stone. Miss Amina, he said in careful English, please get in the car. No. She backed away, clutching her bags, looking around for help. The street was empty. 4 in the morning. No witnesses. I am not asking, the man said. His tone wasn't threatening. It was simply factual. There are 7 men watching you right now. 3 on this street, 4 on the parallel street. If you run, they will catch you. If you scream, no one will come. Please get in the car. Mr. Kang would like to speak with you. Who is Mr. Kang? The man whose son you saved. Amina felt the world tilt sideways. I didn't save anyone. I just fed a baby. I didn't know. That is why you are still alive, Miss Amina. That is why this is a conversation and not something else entirely. Please get in the car. She looked at his eyes. Flat. Professional. This man had done terrible things. She could see it in the way he stood, the way he moved. This was someone who hurt people for a living, but he was also telling the truth. She could run, but she wouldn't get far. Amina got in the car. They drove in silence through Seoul's pre-dawn streets. Amina sat rigid in the back seat, her bags clutched to her chest, watching the city slide past the tinted windows. She thought about David, safe with Mrs. Kim. She thought about her mother, waiting for her monthly wire transfer. She thought about all the ways this could end badly. The car pulled into an underground garage beneath a building that looked like it cost more than her entire neighborhood. Private elevator, the kind that required a key card and a code. They went up and up and up. The doors opened directly into a penthouse apartment that took up the entire top floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seoul's glittering skyline. Modern furniture that looked uncomfortable and expensive. Art on the walls that Amina suspected was real. And in the center of it all, standing by the window with his back to her, was a man. He turned around slowly. Kang Min-jae was not what Amina had expected. She'd been imagining someone older, someone brutal-looking, scars and gold chains and violence written across his face. But Min-jae looked like a businessman. Late 30s, maybe 40. Sharp suit, dark hair, neatly styled, handsome in a cold way, like a knife made of ice. His eyes were the worst part, empty, like looking into a frozen lake. He studied her for a long moment without speaking. Then he dismissed everyone else with a slight gesture. The door closed. They were alone. You fed my son, Min-jae said. His English was perfect, barely accented. 3 weeks ago, in the hospital. Amina's mouth was too dry to speak. She nodded. Do you know why you are still alive, Miss Amina? She shook her head. Because you didn't know who he was. Because you acted out of kindness, not strategy. Because... He paused, something flickering across his face too quickly to read. Because the formula they were giving him was poisoned. Slowly, carefully, over weeks. Enough to make him sick, but not enough to be obvious. My enemies are patient people. Amina felt her knees go weak. He was dying, Minjae continued, his voice perfectly controlled. The doctors couldn't figure out why. Every test came back normal, but he kept getting sicker, weaker, until that night, the night you fed him, the night the power went out because someone sabotaged the hospital's electrical system, the night they came to finish what they'd started. I didn't know. I know you didn't know. That is why you are alive. He took a step closer, but now you are part of this. You saved my son's life. That creates a bond, an obligation. In my world, such things matter. I don't want any part of your world. That is unfortunate, because my world already has you. Amina's fear crystallized into something harder. Anger. I'm not your property. I fed a hungry baby. That's all. I don't want your money. I don't want your protection. I don't want anything from you. For the first time, something almost like surprise crossed Minjae's face. People do not usually speak to me that way. Maybe they should. The silence stretched between them, taut as a wire. Then Minjae did something unexpected. He smiled. It didn't reach his eyes, but it changed his face entirely, made him look almost human. Sit down, Miss Amina, please. Let me explain something to you. She didn't want to sit, wanted to run, to scream, to wake up from this nightmare. But she sat. Minjae sat across from her, and for the first time since she'd entered, he looked tired. My son's mother died in childbirth. Complications. The baby survived, but barely. I have no family. No one I trust. The people who work for me fear me, but fear is not the same as loyalty. When he got sick, I realized how alone I truly am. Amina said nothing. You are the only person who helped him without knowing who he was, without calculating what you might gain, without fear. He leaned forward. That kind of person is rare, valuable. I cannot let you go now. You can't keep me prisoner. I am not keeping you prisoner. I am keeping you alive. There are security cameras throughout the hospital. My enemies have access to those cameras. By now, they know you exist. They know you helped my son. They will assume you are important to me. His eyes were cold again. Which means they will try to hurt you, use you, kill you if it suits their purposes. Amina felt the floor drop out from under her. What? You cannot go back to your life as it was. Your apartment is being watched. Your workplace is compromised. Even the woman who watches your son, they know about her now. David, her voice came out as a broken whisper. My son is safe. I have men watching him, men watching everyone you care about. But you cannot see him until we resolve this situation. What situation? The situation where my enemies believe you matter to me. The situation where keeping you alive requires constant vigilance. The situation where... He stopped, chose his words carefully. Where I need you to stay close. Close? Here, in my protection, where I can keep you safe. Amina stood up so fast her chair fell backward. No, absolutely not. I am not staying here. I don't care what you think you owe me. I don't care about your world or your enemies or your obligations. I want my son. I want my life back. That is not possible anymore. Make it possible. I cannot. She was crying now, hot tears of rage and fear streaming down her face. You can. You just choose not to. You choose to trap me here because it's convenient for you. Because you can. But I am not yours to keep. I'm not a thing you can own because I showed your son basic human kindness. Minjae stood up slowly, and for a moment Amina thought she'd pushed too far. Thought he might hurt her, but he just looked at her with those empty eyes and said, You are right, I cannot own you, but I can keep you alive, and I will, whether you want me to or not. The weeks that followed were strange and terrible, and nothing like Amina had imagined captivity would be. She had her own room in the penthouse. Enormous bed, private bathroom, a closet that someone had stocked with clothes in exactly her size. There were no locks on the door. She could walk anywhere in the apartment she wanted, but she couldn't leave. Men were always outside, in the hallway, in the lobby, in the garage, not threatening, not even visible most of the time, but there, always there. Min-jae kept his distance. She saw him maybe once a day, usually early in the morning, before he left for whatever it was he did. He never tried to talk to her beyond basic necessities. Never touched her. Never even looked at her longer than necessary. But she felt his presence everywhere. In the food that appeared at mealtimes, always perfectly suited to her preferences, even though she'd never told anyone what she liked. In the books that showed up on her nightstand, in her native language. In the photographs of David that appeared weekly, showing her son safe and happy, unaware his mother was being held in a gilded cage. She tried to escape once, made it as far as the building's lobby before 4 men materialized from nowhere, politely but firmly escorting her back upstairs. Min-jae had been waiting in the apartment. That was foolish, he'd said. Keeping me here is foolish. Keeping you alive is necessary. For who? For you? For your conscience? He'd looked at her for a long moment, then said something she hadn't expected. Perhaps both. On the 30th day, everything changed. Amina woke up to shouting, crashes, the sound of gunfire muffled by thick walls and distance. She bolted out of bed, heart hammering, and ran to her door. Locked. For the first time since she'd been here, her door was locked from the outside. More gunfire. Closer now. She grabbed her phone, the one they'd given her that only made calls to pre-approved numbers, and dialed the only number she had. Min-jae answered on the first ring. Stay in your room, he said. His voice was different. Tight. Controlled fear underneath the calm. Lock the bathroom door. Get in the bathtub. Do not come out until I come for you. What's happening? They found you. Now do what I said. The line went dead. Amina ran to the bathroom, locked the door, climbed into the bathtub and curled up with her arms wrapped around her knees. She could hear shouting in Korean. More shots. Something exploding. Then silence. Terrible, complete silence. She waited. Minutes felt like hours. She stared at the bathroom door, expecting it to burst open any second, expecting men with guns to drag her out. Instead, there was a gentle knock. Amina, it's safe. You can come out. Min-jae's voice, but changed. Rough. Tired. She unlocked the door with shaking hands. Min-jae stood in her bedroom doorway. His perfect suit was torn, blood on his sleeve, a cut above his eye, but alive. Are you hurt? He asked. She shook her head, unable to speak. He nodded once, then turned to leave. Wait, Amina heard herself say. What happened? They tried to take you. We stopped them. How many? Does it matter? How many? He looked at her with those cold eyes that suddenly didn't seem cold at all, just infinitely tired. 12 men, all dead. 3 of mine wounded. 1 may not survive. He paused. I told you, my world is not kind. Take me to your son, Amina said. Min-jae blinked. What? Your son, the baby I fed. Take me to him. Now. Why? Because I need to see that something good came from this. Because I need to remember why any of this matters. Because if I'm going to be trapped in your world, I need to see the one innocent thing in it. Something shifted in Min-jae's face. A crack in the ice. All right, he said quietly. I'll take you to him. The baby was in a nursery 3 floors down, protected by enough security to guard a president. But when Min-jae walked in holding Amina's hand, the guard simply stepped aside. The baby was awake, gurgling in his crib, reaching for the mobile spinning above him. He was bigger now, healthy. His cheeks had filled out. His eyes were bright and curious. Amina walked to the crib slowly, as if approaching something holy. The baby saw her and smiled. An instant, radiant smile of pure recognition and joy. And Amina started crying. All the fear, all the anger, all the exhaustion of the past month came pouring out in great heaving sobs. She'd saved this life, this perfect, innocent life. She felt Min-jae's hand on her shoulder, gentle. His name is Ji-hoon, he said softly. It means wisdom and kindness. I named him after his mother died. I wanted him to be nothing like me. He's beautiful. Yes. Ji-hoon reached up toward her, and without thinking, Amina picked him up. He snuggled against her chest like he remembered, like some part of him still knew her as the person who'd saved him that desperate night. She looked at Min-jae. Really looked at him. saw past the cold exterior to the man underneath. A man who was terrified. A man who was desperately trying to protect the one thing in his life that mattered. "I can't be your prisoner," she said. "I can't live in a cage." "I know, but I can help you protect him, teach you how to care for him, show you how to be his father instead of just his bodyguard." Min-jae's expression crumbled. Just for a second, just long enough for her to see the raw vulnerability underneath. "I don't know how," he whispered. "I don't know how to do any of this. I can kill men. I can run an empire. But I don't know how to be a father. I'll teach you, but you have to let me see my son. You have to let me have some kind of life. Even if it's a strange one. Even if it's not the life I wanted." He looked at her holding his child, and something fundamental shifted in his eyes. Not love, not yet, but recognition, partnership, a desperate kind of trust. "Okay," he said, "okay." It wasn't a happy ending. It was too complicated for that, too tangled in violence and necessity and the strange bonds that form between broken people. But it was a beginning. Amina moved into a separate apartment in the building, still protected, but her own space. David came to live with her within a week, brought by Mrs. Kim, who asked no questions and accepted the absurd amount of money Min-jae paid her with dignity. She saw Min-jae almost daily now, teaching him how to feed Ji-hoon, how to change diapers without looking terrified, how to play, how to read bedtime stories even when work had exhausted him beyond words. And slowly, carefully, they became something neither of them had expected. Not a couple, not exactly, but a family assembled from broken pieces. Months passed, then a year. Min-jae's empire remained dangerous. There were more attacks, more narrow escapes, but Amina learned to navigate this world. Learned when to push back and when to trust Min-jae's judgment. Learned the difference between being protected and being controlled. And Min-jae learned something too. Learned that power wasn't just about fear. Learned that the person who'd saved his son by accident had become the person saving him deliberately, every single day, just by being there. One night, long after Ji-hoon had fallen asleep, they sat together on the balcony overlooking Seoul. David was asleep in Amina's apartment. The bodyguards were distant shadows. "Do you regret it?" Min-jae asked. "That night in the hospital?" Amina thought about everything that had happened. Her old life, gone forever. Her freedom, redefined. Her future, uncertain and strange. But she thought about Ji-hoon's smile, about David's new school and the opportunities he'd never have had otherwise. About the man beside her who'd learned to be gentle because she'd insisted on it. "No," she said, "I don't regret saving a life, even when that life drags you into places you never imagined going. Even when kindness becomes complicated. That's very wise. Maybe, or maybe I'm just making peace with the life I have instead of mourning the life I lost." Min-jae reached over and took her hand. The first time he'd touched her, that wasn't about protection or necessity, just connection. "Thank you," he said, "for saving my son, for saving me." Amina squeezed his hand back. "We're saving each other. That's how this works." And somewhere in the nursery below them, Ji-hoon slept peacefully, a child who would grow up knowing that his life had been saved twice. Once by accident, by a stranger's exhausted kindness, and once by choice, by two damaged people who decided that love was worth fighting for, even when the world conspired against them. If one moment of kindness could change your entire life, would you regret it? Sometimes the answer isn't yes or no. Sometimes it's simply this: I survived. I adapted. I found unexpected beauty in darkness. And that's enough. If this story moved you, if it made you think about the price of kindness or the strange ways people become families, hit that like button. Drop a comment telling me what you would have done in Amina's place. Would you have run, stayed, fought back? And subscribe for more stories about the complicated ways we save each other, even when salvation looks nothing like we expected. Because sometimes the most powerful stories aren't about perfect heroes. They're about imperfect people making impossible choices and surviving anyway.